Hey, Mr. Lursen here, and this week we're learning how to draw the eyes, so I'll get right into it. Your warm-up prior to working through this video with me is to get out a pencil and your sketchbook and draw a pair of eyes, eyebrows, basically this part of the face. Now, this year, your self-portraits that you're going to do because of the pandemic, because of life in 2020, 2021 school year, we're not going to go over how to draw the nose and mouth because our life for the past year, literally, has been wearing masks whenever you are around other people. So, like this drawing, which is not complete, but you can see that the eyes are present, the nose. Put your mask on properly, please. Just kidding. This is drawing, obviously. The hair is incomplete. The mask is incomplete. The clothing is incomplete. But the skin and the eyes are getting there. They're pretty good so far. So your self-portrait this year is going to be wearing a mask. And before that, I want you to learn how to draw the basics of the eyes. So I would like for you to get out a sheet of paper and a pencil. And I want your drawing to follow along with mine. So this represents your sheet of paper, right? That represents your sheet of paper. Now, so that you draw big enough, I want you to put a dash at the top and a dash at the bottom so that your oval that represents the layout of the head will be big enough. No tiny drawings. You also can do lots of gestural drawings to get the right shape before you press down hard. Now, for the majority of the drawing we're going to do so far, they're all going to be guidelines. Guidelines are lines that are there to help you know the right placement and proportion of a part of the face, but you don't want them visible in the end drawing. So, although I'm drawing with a black dry erase marker, it just paints black. I can't press lightly to get light gray, but you can with your pencil. So until we get to the part where we're drawing things that will be there in the end of the drawing, all of your lines should be very, very delicate, light pressure, light gray, so that you can easily erase them. All right. Now that you've drawn your oval, I want you to divide the oval in half, left to right. There you go. Now the eyes, when you're looking straight at somebody, not from profile, not from three-quarter view, not looking down from above or up from below. When you're looking straight at somebody, the eyes are halfway from the top to the bottom of the head. The eyes are halfway in the middle. So what we're going to do is we're going to eyeball about halfway, draw a line through, and I want you to write 1/2. That's halfway from the chin to the top, and label that eye line. Eye line. Now, we know our eyes are going to go on that height. The eyebrows go on the brow ridge, the part of the skull that sticks forward and overhangs over the eyeballs. That's going to be, so fractions, you understand this. If the top to the bottom, that equals 1. Top to halfway, that's half. Half of a half is a quarter. What is half of a quarter? 1/8. So we're going to not put it at that point, which is a quarter. We're going to take this section and divide it in half. And you're going to draw a very light, erasable guideline all the way across. That's going to be 1/8 above the eyes equals the brow ridge. R-I-D-G-E, ridge, brow ridge. All right, so we know our eyes are going to be at this height, our eyebrows are going to be at that height, and I want you to actually label these lines. All right, so do any of you know how many eyes can fit between the right and the left of your face? Yes, we only have 2 eyes, but you should be able to fit an eye between the eyes and an eye on the outside of the eyes, making a total of 5 eyes. So if I were to do this, you have an eye width, an eye, an eye, an eye, and an eye. So 5 eyes wide. And I always start by establishing the spacing between the eyes. That should be equally spaced away from the center. Then I'm going to take my fingers, use them as a bracket. Perfect. And that's a little bit short, so I'm just going to adjust that head. There. All right, so now I have the space for an eye, real eyes, and the space for eyes. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and move on with how to draw the eyes. Now the eyes are three-dimensional. They come forward. They're balls. They're spheres. So as a guideline, everything you've drawn so far should be very light. You're going to lightly draw circles here in place of each eye. That's going to represent the anatomy of the eyeball. And these should look kind of like Pokeballs as they are divided in half across the first guideline. I'm doing a dashed line because I want you to be able to see it, but like you, these are going to be erased later. All right, so this represents the eyeball as a whole. So the white of the eye, can you see it, is called the sclera. And the colored part of the eye is called the iris. And the pupil, the black center part that changes in diameter, opening up to let more light in the dark or closing to reduce the light and the brightness, that's called the pupil. So we are going to design a face where the character you draw looks straight at you. So to do that, you have to draw the iris and the pupil as concentric circles. Concentric circles means that circles have the same center point, like a bullseye or the Target logo, the store Target. All right, so we're going to create our iris relatively large. That's the colored part. And before I don't just randomly draw circles. I want them to be about the same size, and I want them to be centered across the guideline. So as you can see, I've created 4 points that were about equal from the center point. And those are my guidelines. Now I'm going to connect it. And my connections have to go through the guidelines, or I don't understand the purpose of the guidelines. All right, so there we go. Those are our irises. Now we're going to add in the pupils. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to measure out around the center point. And there we are. We have our pupils. Now I want to move on. Before we start coloring anything in, we're not coloring anything in yet because I want to talk about highlights. Highlights exist anywhere there is a reflective surface and a light source. So whenever you are walking around the lake or the beach and the sun is setting or the sun is rising, so it's at a low angle and it's hitting across all the waves and there's sparkling tens of thousands of lights all shining in your eyes from across the water, those are highlights, thousands of them, just reflections of the sun. Whenever you are walking around and a brand new car comes off the lot or right out of Auto Bell, it's perfectly clean and shiny, and then just for a moment it reflects the sunlight at your eyes and just blinds you for a moment, that's a highlight. And inside your eyes, because the tear ducts keep your eyes moisturized and hydrated, they're reflective too. So anytime you are around lights, like I am right now, you're going to have highlights in your eyes. Now, we're going to designate some places for highlights, but I do not want you to draw a dark line around the highlight because nowhere in the real world do you ever have a highlight outlined in black. That just doesn't happen because a highlight is just bouncing light. It's not bouncing light with a donut around it. All right. So with that being said, just like I made a dotted line here, I want you to very, very lightly create a dotted line that overlaps your pupil and iris, because I don't want you to have a black line around your highlight. Also, I want you to try to put the highlights in the exact same position in each eye, because the eyes are so close together compared to how far away the sun is or the ceiling lights or otherwise. So generally the angle of the reflection of lights is going to hit at the same point. So now that you have established the highlight area with a very delicate dashed line, I want you to erase away anything inside that highlight. And from this point forward, no matter what you think you hear me say, you will never shade or draw inside those highlight circles, ever. Now that we've said that, let's color in the pupils, but not the pupil that would be inside the highlight. Done. Now it's starting to look like a droid from Star Wars or something. So now it's time to add in our tear ducts. They are the glands inside the corners of the eyes, between the eyes and the nose, that are inside the eyelids. And they're going to be just underneath this the center line, touching the dashed white of the eye. I added one here and one here, very small, much smaller than the pupil. Now let's go ahead and keep in mind that if at any point I'm working too fast, you just pause the video and then hit play when you're ready. Otherwise, I might be moving too slowly, so we want to keep a good pace. All right, so now it's time to do the eyelid. Now, if you were to look at your own reflection, if you were to look at someone else in the room, if you're not alone, if you were to look at photographs of people on Google or magazines, 99.9% of all people who are awake have their eyelids going through the iris. You don't see the white of the eye above the iris. The eyelid blocks that. So we're going to put a line across the top of the iris right there. That's how high we're going to draw the eyelid. And then the eyelid wraps around the tear duct, goes up and connects with that line. Around the tear duct, goes up and connects with that line. The outer corner of the eyelid is higher than the tear duct. It's going to be right around there, right around here. Of course, this changes with the angle of the head and all that, but we're still working straight on. So this is going to come down and intersect with that. Come down and intersect with that. All right, and now that we have established the shape of the top of the eyelid, we're going to do the bottom of the eyelid. And that is going to, once again, go through the iris, but have a much more dramatic curve here. Now that you have drawn the eyelid shape, let's go ahead and erase our guidelines. It's going to be a lot faster for me than it is for you because I'm working with dry erase. But in the end, I won't have anything to keep, so you're better off using a pencil and getting to keep your drawing. So I'm erasing my guidelines. I don't need them anymore. If my words are a little confusing, just wait until you see me how it looks when it's finished, then pause the video and copy what you see. I'm erasing the parts of the eye that you would not see that would be behind the skin or the eyelid. There we go. Erase your eyelids so that they look like that, please. Let me move you a little bit closer. Moving forward. There we go. So now that you have the eyelids, the irises, the pupils, and the highlights, it's time to talk about shading the iris. All right, so now that you can see a little closer, I want you to first create some guidelines, light pressure lines. The only thing really dark on your drawing so far should be the inside of the pupil. Everything else, as of right now, is relatively light and easily erasable. Now, draw a crosshair through the iris, not the white of the eye, the iris. We haven't touched the white of the eye yet. This crosshair, the wheel spokes that go around the pupil in the iris, are there to show you that no matter where you are around the iris, you should be rotating your lines like the hands of a clock. Now that you've done that, I want to talk about real life, and when in realism, the majority of us are lit from above, ceiling lights. When the lights come down, our eyebrows, our eyelashes block some of the light and thereby create a shadow across the top third of the eye. So if this is the eye, you don't have to draw this, but we're going to divide this into thirds. The height of the pupil, the bottom of the pupil, and then the bottom of the iris. So there's a top third, the middle third, and the bottom third. The top third is going to be dark. It has shadows. The middle third in here is going to be medium because it gets a normal amount of light, and that's where the color in the eyes are generally the most rich. Because of the three-dimensional curve of the transparent lens in front of the eye that we see through right now, that bends light and creates a focal point of highlights down in the bottom third. So that's going to mean that when we color our iris, we want to leave a lot of light down here. A lot of the white of the page should be left down there. As an example, let me hold this up in front of the camera. You see how it's darker in the top third and lighter in the bottom third? That's what we're talking about. And I'm going to teach you how to do that now. So, in the top, we're going to have very dense lines that rotate around the hand of the clock. And then as we get down to the bottom, we leave more white space. And as we get more to the top, we're starting to leave more white space between the lines. You can also do little lines from the outside, little lines from the inside to create a halo of light down here. All right, so I just finished drawing the lines that fill and shade the iris. And you'll notice that I left more white of the page, or in this case of the board, between my lines in the bottom third, so that it looks like there's a shadow at the top and it's lighter on the bottom. Now the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your pencil on its side very lightly and you're going to shade in this part here at the top and the top here while leaving the bottom of the white light. You're going to do that here and here. Now I can't gently shade with a black marker, so the best I can do is some light lines, thin lines I mean. Alright, so there we go. But you're going to rub that with your finger so that it becomes foggy and smooth. So you're creating the round effect on the white of the eye. Now, the next thing we're going to do is draw a fold above the eye. This is whenever the eye opens up and you have that fold above the eyelid. Each and every one of you have a different and unique fold. Different ethnicities have different folds. Some are not even visible. So we're not going to put a whole lot of time into this. I am just going to put a fold here that goes across there. From above the tear duct, goes up, and then comes over to the other corner of the eye. I'm going to keep it simple like that. Now, we want to talk about eyelashes. So, if I were to ask a kindergartner, draw some eyes and eyelashes, they might do something like this. Like the sun, or like the symbol of a sun. We don't want to do straight lines out of the eye because that looks flattened, and we want them to look 3D, which means the eyelashes grow forward and down out of the eyelid and curve up. And that arc creates the 3D illusion. So that's what not to do. What you're actually actually going to do is going to be going down and then up and out. Now, the end, here's the thing that's that is similar to that Egyptian hieroglyph look or the child's drawing look where the eyelashes radiate. They are ultimately going to go away from the pupil when they're at their furthest point. You do not need to draw these arrows. This is done for you by me to help you see where they're ultimately pointing. But down and then up. To do a bigger eye, because I don't know if you can necessarily see this well, you go down and up to the left on the left side of the pupil, down and up to the right on the right side. And in the middle, they just kind of go straight up. So here, I'm going to do this. If I were to do one eyeball, please don't erase what you've done and copy this part. I'm going to do a larger eye so that you can see what I am talking about here. All right, that's good enough. Darken that. Darken that. So this is what you have so far, and you've shaded this. Now, I'm not going to shade it so that you can see more easily the lines for the eyelashes. They go down and away, down and away, down and away, down and then up and away, rather. Here, they just go up. Here, they go down and up to the left. Now, there are fewer and thinner eyelashes around the tear duct than there are on the center or outer part. And these can become as stylized as you want, as it is very common for some people to wear mascara, eyeliner, that kind of stuff. So if you really want to make these glamorous, then by all means do so. Now here's the trick about the bottom eyelashes. They don't grow directly out of this line like they do with the upper eyelid. They actually, and maybe we can see, yep, do you see? I know I'm looking really silly right now, but I'm doing this for your benefit. All right, so as I look at my eyelids, I can see a line of skin before my lower eyelashes begin. Okay, to draw that, I am going to draw the eyelashes out of about a quarter of an inch, on my board it's a quarter of an inch. On yours it might be a fraction, the tiniest space, but you just want to leave a little thin line of border of skin before your eyelashes start growing, or before you start drawing them. And they also, like the upper eyelashes, will rotate on the left side and the right side. And they should be relatively thinner and shorter than the upper eyelashes. See how there's a border there? That's going to help the illusion of it looking 3D. There we go. So our eyelashes are now in on the bottom and the top. So now we're going to move on to eyebrows. Now I will reestablish that line. So that's how high they are. We're going to create some new, very lightly drawn guidelines. Very lightly drawn. Don't draw through the eye drawing, draw above. Draw a vertical line very lightly above the tear ducts. Vertical, not diagonal. This is diagonal. Don't do that. Just going to mess up your drawing. Vertical over the corner of the eye and the center. But don't draw through this. All right, so this is the beginning of the eyebrow, and typically the arch in the eyebrow exists where the eyebrow goes from being on the front of the face to going on the side of the head. Typically, that's somewhere in this area. So we're going to create a guideline, a dot, lower, medium, higher, lower, medium, higher, lower on the nose, near the nose, medium in the middle, higher, up there. And then we're just going to create those as a line with gentle slopes. Now the arch happens after that. There we go. Now, no one of us, unless you are drawing it on with like an eyeliner pencil or something, none of us have an outline around our eyebrows. So these are all guidelines. In the end drawing, you shouldn't have these lines there. They're just there to show you where to draw. Now your actual hairs are going to be drawn inside from the nose up and out, like that, like this. Always from the root of the hair up and out. Because where you first touch the pencil to the page, it's going to be a dark, dense, round blob of a mark. And then you pull and lift and it tapers like a real hair does. If you were to fill it in from the outside in, you're going to make your hairs look like fingers. And it's going to look weird. And you want to overlap your outline a little bit because in most cases, we don't want our outlines to be in the end drawing. And whenever we get to this curve, we start changing the angle downward to be parallel with the outline. If you want to make this more natural, first and foremost, we want to get rid of the guidelines. And then you can add some more hairs here, just like real life. All of this should be a very natural, well, it will be whatever you make it to be. We'll leave it at that. So you're going to fill in the eyebrows. We're almost finished with this lesson. There we go. Now, for the shading, shading is not coloring the whole skin gray or peach or brown or tan. That's not shading. Shading is whenever you look at the person, as you're looking at me, and you see shadows around different areas, shadows around the side of my nose, shadows, well, my beard is kind of dark, under my hairline, and you copy those shadows and you draw them in the drawing where you see them in real life. That's shading. That also means you have to keep some highlights. So typically the things that are most highlighted are the things that come out the most. So the bridge of my nose, my cheekbones, my forehead, my chin right there. So those are highlights. These areas that recede are in the shadow. Now, I can't draw lightly with this. You can with your pencil. Draw your shadows lighter than any of your dark lines. You never draw the nose with lines. That is bad. That's amateur. We don't do that. All right. And also, if you get carried away with shading and your skin is now darker than your eyes or your eyebrows, then you need to re-darken your eyes and eyebrows so that the eyes and eyebrows are darker than the skin. This area here is typically a highlight. So we're not going to color it all gray everywhere. Typically there's a shadow in here. Typically there's a little shading happening here. The darkest shadows are typically in the corner, right around here. And you can smudge this to smooth out the lines. All these wiggly lines that I'm making, that's called gesture drawing, where I'm just kind of scribbling it in. We probably have a mask. Whenever you get to doing your self-portrait, probably going to have a mask here. If you're in person, certainly you will. If you don't see your ears because the hair is overlapping them, then you don't draw them. You only draw what you see. All right, so that is how to draw the eyes, eyelashes, and eyebrows, and a little bit about the shading. Ultimately, whenever you get to the point where you are drawing your self-portrait in 2 weeks, never will you ever draw yourself in this method. This is the fundamental basics of how to draw the eyes and eyebrows from theory. Whenever you look at yourself in the reflection, you forget theory and you only draw what you see. If you have curly hair, don't draw straight. If you have shaved your eyebrows off, don't draw the eyebrows. If you have very, very light eyes, then don't make them dark. If you have very, very dark eyes and it's all equal, then don't leave the highlights, depending on what you actually look like. And you are all beautiful people. There is no one better than the other just because of the shapes of the eyeball and stuff like that, all right? So thank you very much. After you have drawn this drawing, it doesn't have to have a mask, it doesn't have to have hair, just this part of the drawing, you're going to upload a photo of that for this week's credit. Now, this is being uploaded late in the week, so I'm going to accept it I'll accept it even if you don't turn it in on time. All right? And do your best, and I look forward to seeing your work. All right. If you have any questions, email me at Stephen_Lursen@iss.k12.nc.us, and I will gladly write back to you. You can also message me on Canvas. All right. Thanks. Bye.